Good afternoon, lady and gentlemen. You're obviously the only woman at the moment. We are a small group this afternoon. I'm Bernhard Haberfelner from Bavaria Sonor. Bavaria Sonor is a daughter company and at the same time the licensing agent of Bavaria Film. Bavaria Film again is one of Europe's biggest film production companies with a history of about 19 years. History in filmmaking, which looks back to productions from Billy Wilder, Volker Schlöndorff, production with Liza Minnelli, Wolfgang Petersen, and so on. Probably the most successful movie Bavaria's film production has produced so far is Das Boot, the famous submarine film. You might all know that. Welcome to this workshop. It's a workshop, so please do not hesitate to answer all your questions in between. And I must say I haven't chosen this title by myself. It's called How to Sell to Merchandising Wonderland, and I would never talk about a Wonderland. I'm still looking for that Wonderland. It's a bit exaggerated, it promises a bit too much. And I would also not choose the word merchandising. Merchandising is actually the result of our work. I'd like to talk about licensing more. Licensing for me is the process which at the end leads to merchandising products which you can buy at the shops, at the retailers. Before I start, may I ask, is there anybody in the audience who is currently producing content, maybe as a publisher, as a game producer, or a film producer? Okay, about 3, 4. So you actually probably interested in the question: is your property suitable for licensing, and what as a licensor, what do you need? How you get prepared for this kind of business? What you can expect from this business, and that's what I want to talk about. I'm sorry for this microphone. I have been asked to use it, so I wouldn't need it, but I have to hold it in my hands. So again, the purpose of this meeting is to make yourself a bit more familiar with the process of licensing, a bit more familiar with the procedures, with the routines and the standards. The most important point is in the middle of this chart. It is to get an understanding of the revenue model and adjust your economic expectations. So, coming back to the title of this workshop, talking about Wonderland, that's just the case in with very few properties. And so I think we have to get a real picture of what you can earn with licensing and what the average licensing deal means, etc. I want to talk about how you, as a potential licensor, can be prepared for the big task which lay ahead of you, for what you have to do before you start business, and where you can get help and whatever. And then, last but not least, to learn about the risk and also the opportunities of this business. First of all, I don't know. You might quickly or you might briefly tell me what you do as a licensed content. Can you tell me what you're doing or what you plan? Yeah, would you?
Me,
you said you're planning a property or...
Well, I publish some graphic novels.
Okay.
And it would be great, in addition to the income from selling the actual books, to also sell games, figurines, whatever.
Okay. Is that a local property?
It's a local property at the moment.
Where is it from then?
From the UK.
From the UK, okay. Yeah. And may I ask you as well?
We are a studio in the Philippines, and we have so many programs that come out on TV.
Okay.
So we're thinking that it might be good if we could also merchandise them.
Have they been sold to Europe or outside the Philippines?
Mostly just in the Philippines.
Okay. And may I ask you as well?
Yeah, I work in children's content, so we have children's characters for books.
For books, okay. Good. So the first question, I mean, it's publishing and it's film production, animation, I guess. And So the first question you have to ask yourself, is the audience big enough? So do you have a target group big enough to make the whole thing work and to I mean, have a good relation between the effort we put in and the potential outcome? Talking about animation, for example, imagine children animation, not a series, just an animation, a theatrical film, who is not 3D, it's not Disney, so the average audience maybe in Germany, in a country like Germany, is 500,000. Maybe if you are happy, then it's a bit more, it reaches 1 million, and if you put a lot of P&A in it, but let's talk about 500,000. Would you think that is a figure big enough for a licensing program? Do you think that if an audience of 500,000, 500,000 gets in touch with your property on screen, would that trigger a licensing program? Just vaguely, what do you think? Would that be enough? It's difficult, I'd say. It's difficult. So take half of these 500,000 away, because that's the parents who accompany their children. So then you have an audience maybe of 250,000 or something like that, you know. So I can't provide you with any realistic figure. I can't say it's licensing program starts with 500,000 or whatsoever. But you need, I think you can follow me, a certain audience, a certain figure, and then you have to ask yourself, at the end, do they really want to sell something, buy something? Do they really want to have the T-shirt? If you give away a T-shirt for free at the premiere of that film, or at the book show, at the release of this title or whatever, they probably will take it for free. But would they really, in a competitive environment, there is many characters on the market, there is many licensed properties on the market, there is limited retail shelf space, and so on. Would they really buy your T-shirt? So ask yourself this question quite in detail. I will give you some figures now when it comes to the economic terms of licensing agreements. Then you have maybe a bit of clearer understanding what figures you have to reach in the licensing business. But another question is, does the property have a serial character? So I don't know how many books you published so far. Is it just one? And how many people read it? How many people bought a copy? Or you can ask yourself this question as well. But it is easier, of course, if it has a serial character. When I go back to the beginnings of Harry Potter, for example, which is a property coming from the publishing sector, when I can go back to Harry Potter about 10 years ago, the merchandising for the first film was nearly, there was a program, but it didn't work. It didn't work for several reasons. First of all, it didn't work because the film, for the first time, provided a clear image of Harry Potter, which was quite different from the image people had in mind when they read the story. But still, even so, it did not work. It just worked for the second and third time, then the property got bigger and the licensing program took off. Same is with Men in Black, Indiana Jones, Star Wars, and whatsoever. So they are series, so people are used to the logos, they're used to the characters, to the actors, and so on, and you have some images in your head connected to those series, which makes it much easier. But to start the licensing program just with the release of the film is quite a hopeless undertaking. I was just recently, if you plan on animation with pigs, for example, it's difficult to license that because there is so many pigs in the licensing, in the animation sector. There is Peppa Pig, there is Olivia from Korean Entertainment. So pig is not a unique character. It has to have something very special to attract an audience and to trigger the sales of merchandising. Same is with live film or whatever. If you deliver just pictures from a farm life or whatever, this is not suitable for licensing. You need some strong images. You need something to put on the products. You need something which creates, I would say, an emotional link between the property and your fan and your merchandise is suitable. I give you an overview about the merchandising categories later on, but of course you have to consider this as well. There is some do's and don'ts for some licensors. For example, the BBC doesn't allow to license sweets. So no candies, no sweets, nothing, no lollipops, no chewing gum, etc. This is the food policy. Others, the best example always is lighters. Do you allow lighters? Lighters, I mean, you can light a candle with a lighter, but most people light the cigarettes with a lighter. So this is something you have to consider. And then the most important question, are you self-prepared? And this is a bit the more tricky question. So, given the fact that you produce something, a game, a book, series of books, an animated film, or another kind of film, you want to license it, you need to do your homework. And the basic element in this homework is the legal framework. So you have to protect your property. You want to do business with it, and if you give away licensing contracts to licensees who produce items with your images and your artwork, then you have to protect them as well. You have to register your trademarks in the different product categories, in the different consumer good classes. You have to provide contracts. So you probably don't have such contract in your office, I guess. You need a licensing contract, something which has been tried and tested and which works and which actually is a legal document securing a chain of rights from you to the licensee. If you work with an agent, you need an agency agreement. Do you have that as well? So that all costs money. It's legal costs. It's expensive. You probably, as a publisher, or you might have such kind of licensing agreement. As an animation studio, you might not have such kind of agreement. So that is the first task for you. The other task is artwork. Those who produce merchandising, the toy manufacturer, the apparel company, the promotion partners in the food business or whatever, they need images. They need pictures to put on the products. At least they need a logo in a high resolution or whatever. Do you have that ready at the beginning? That is something you have to ask yourself. You need to have these things because they are a substantial element of the licensing contract. So, and when you don't have to, you need them just about a year before you start a licensing program. And this is tricky, especially in the animation, you know, because, I mean, just remember today is the launch, the theatrical release of an animated film called Konferenz der Tiere. It's the German title, in English is Animals United. It's a story based on Erich Kästner's novel, and it's a 3D animation. And we made a couple of contracts for this property, a couple of licensing contracts as the agents for this property. And about a year ago, the first licensees wanted to have the artwork. So the plush manufacturer, he needed character turnarounds. He wanted to see the character from all sides, from in front, from behind, from both sides, from above. He needed to know about the proportions and the colors and whatever. And then I called the producer in the middle of his film production process, and he said, I'm sorry, I can't, I'm in the middle of doing a $10 million film. I don't know how much it costs. And he said,